Welcome to the Creative Generations podcast. Today, I talked with Emma Wessel and Joseph Dang, who are two of our original mentees with Creative Generations. Emma is a member of Sacramento Ballet 2, and Joseph Dang is an apprentice with Sacramento Ballet. We talked about everything from their backgrounds to things that they struggle with to this day, any advice that they would give to young dancers. And we also talked about their new podcast called Pirouettes and Perspectives, which will be presented by Creative Generations. If you like this episode, please subscribe to our podcast, our YouTube channel. And if you want to know more about Creative Generations programming, go to creativegenerations-dance.com. So we're here to talk about Creative Generations. You are two of our first mentees, which is awesome. Two of the first to sign on board and to give it a shot. And yeah, both with Sacramento Ballet. But I thought it would be nice to talk to you both about your backgrounds and how you got to where you are today. So if you want to start just by talking about what you're up to, where you are, and then kind of how you got there, I think would be nice. Emma, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. So I'm originally from Kansas City, Kansas, where I was born and raised, which is a good thing. Everyone talks bad things about Kansas, but it's a wonderful place.
Wait, sorry, before you go on, I just have a question.
Yeah,
Kansas City, Kansas.
yes.
So how do you feel about Kansas City, Missouri? Is that
We don't need to talk about that.
okay?
Probably
Great.
not nice things, you
That's fine.
know?
That's fine. Okay. All right, keep going. I was just wondering.
But yeah, so I grew up there and then I started dance when I was 5 years old. And then I was a hip hop dancer. And so slowly it turned into ballet. One day I just woke up and I was like, let's do ballet. So I did that. And then when I was a junior in high school, I decided that I wanted to move away. And right in the peak of COVID, I was like, let's leave. So I went to UNCSA and became a fighting pickle. Woo. And I was there for my junior and senior year. And then after that, I left to go to Ballet Idaho as a trainee. And then now I'm here at Sacramento Ballet.
Cool. And last year you were a trainee with the second.
Yes.
This year you are a member of SB2.
The SP2. Yeah.
Yeah, sweet. I had no idea that you started doing hip hop. That's cool.
Yeah. I wanted to be a hip hop dancer. And thank goodness that did not happen because I'm definitely not good at hip hop.
Well, what drew you to hip hop though? What was the spark there?
I was just at a recreational studio, and so hip hop was the best for me. I don't know, it's the funnest.
Cool.
Yeah.
How did you get into dancing? Do you have siblings or was it just something that you thought would be fun?
No, I just started dancing around my house, and my mom was like, "Okay, this is unsafe now. We need to put her in like an actual dance studio." So,
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. So Joseph, I know a little bit about your background just because we've talked before, but there is some hip
hmm
hop there as well, right?
Yes. I started out as a hip hop dancer as well. I wanted to be a break dancer when I was like 6.
Yeah.
Um, but there weren't any like break dancing specific type classes. So what I did was my mom took me to the local YMCA to do some hip hop classes, and I did that for about a year and a half.
Hmm.
And then the teacher there quit, so we had to find somewhere else to do hip hop classes. And it just happened at the time that my little sister was doing ballet lessons at this ballet studio, and they happen to have hip hop. Um, the catch was for me to take hip hop though, I had to take a jazz class as well, which I still don't understand, but I think it was their way of just getting more boys into the studio. And when I was 6 or about that age, I thought ballet was stupid. I thought it was one of those things just for girls. But after taking hip hop and jazz, I just like randomly asked my mom one day, "Hey, can I take ballet class?" And yeah, so that's how it happened, and I fell in love with ballet even more than I did with hip hop.
That's great. So you started dancing, you said when you were 6?
I think 6 or 7. Yeah.
And so then once you started focusing more on ballet, where did that take you? Because you grew up around Dallas, right?
Yeah. It took me to a small studio in Capel, Texas
Hmm.
called the Ballet Academy of Texas.
And then from there, how did you get to where you are now? How did you get to Sacramento from Texas?
Um, I knew, or my goal was in my senior year of high school was to move out away from home to just further my training. But unfortunately, that was a year during COVID,
Mm.
or my junior year was the year COVID hit. And so we weren't really sure what was going to happen. But luckily, January of 2021, the NSIA audition started that year.
Oh.
And so I did that audition. And luckily, Ballet Met gave me a full ride to their summer intensive and their trainee program. So that was my way out of home. And that next year, I joined Ballet Met's trainee program in my senior year of high school.
Nice.
Yeah, and then after that, I knew I wasn't gonna stay at Ballet Met anymore. It wasn't the place for me. Um, so I had auditioned for Nashville's second company, but it was a little weird because they kind of messed up my audition. So I ended up taking a pre-pro audition instead of a second company trainee audition.
Hmm.
So the best thing they could offer me was a pre-pro spot there. So that's what had happened. I wasn't too happy about where I was going, but then luckily a notice went out from Sacramento Ballet, like late June, that they were looking for boys to be in their inaugural second company. So without hoping for much, I sent out a video to their email, and a week later I got an email back from Jill saying that she would love to talk to me about it, and next thing I know, I'm moving to Sacramento in about a month. And so that's where I've been. I have been, or I was an SB2 with Sacramento Second Company in its first 2 years, and now I'm an apprentice here.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I think it would be important to talk about because I'm in the same boat. So both of you moved away from home in high school to pursue your career as a dancer. And I guess maybe it'd be nice to talk about some of the struggles that you had with that, or maybe some of the liberating things about that, about following your passion and pursuing your dream and getting to do it pretty much full time at a young age. Emma, how do you feel that kind of shaped you as a dancer right now? Just that getting shot out of a cannon, going to UNCSA as I did my junior and senior year. Personally, I loved that place and thought it was the most amazing experience. But I know that some people do struggle with that. So how do you feel that kind of shaped you as a dancer and as a person?
Yeah, so my junior year and senior year were two very different years for me. My junior year was still during COVID. A lot of restrictions were still happening. So like making friends at first was a little hard. Uh, but once I did make friends, it was like the first time I've had like really close friends that could understand like dance and just overall being passionate about my art, even if they
Mhm.
weren't dancers. So that was kind of liberating, and just having someone that could understand our common struggles, or just like the fact that we're going through a common experience of living in a dorm for the first time at the age of 16 and having to just live how to, like, some people didn't know how to do their laundry, so I had to like teach people how to do laundry, just stuff like that. um Having to wake up on your own at like 8 a.m. to go to your class, just stuff like that, was definitely just an adjustment. But honestly, it was probably one of the greatest experiences that I've ever had, because it shaped who I was today, because it like prepared me for who like the real world. And I think that's one of the, like, I'm so thankful for my parents for letting me go, because I know that that was probably very hard for them to let their 16-year-old daughter like move halfway across the country to somewhere where we've never been, and just kind of trust these CCs to take care of me. But I think that what they were honestly really excited about is that I wasn't even crying when they said goodbye. I was just like, okay, bye, see you in Thanksgiving. And I
You're
just
ready.
walked away from them.
Yeah.
And I didn't call them for the like first 3 or 4 months. And they were like, oh, glad to see you're alive. I'm like, yeah, I'm alive now. So it was definitely very exciting, and it was honestly a wonderful experience, and I'm very thankful. Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Joseph? How do you feel that that time of your life was impactful?
Um, it's funny because growing up as a kid, I would I remember the first day of elementary school or the first month of elementary school. I just cried every day because I hated being away from home. Um, and I remember my very first summer intensive away from home. I didn't cry, but I definitely did not want to be there. I just wanted to go back home. I'm what the term is what homebody? Is that the term? I think so. Growing up, I was a homebody, and so my parents and I, we were both unsure how moving out away from home at 17 would be, but surprisingly, it wasn't that bad. I think it was really good for me. I think both in terms in maturity and just having to figure out how to be an adult at an earlier age. And I think with my dancing, it also helped. It kind of, having having to not be monitored by your parents 24/7. It for some reason it brought out kind of a new level in my dancing that I hadn't felt before. I don't know, it's kind of weird, but yeah. So I would say moving out early was very good for me to do.
Yeah, I think I relate to that because my first summer program I went to was at North Carolina Dance Theater, which is now Charlotte Ballet. And it's like a 3.5 hour drive from my house. And I was so nervous. On the way there, I had my parents pull the car over so I could throw up.
Oh,
And then we got there, and I was only supposed to stay for 2 weeks. But I loved it. I knew almost immediately that this is like the thing for me, the thing I want to do. And so I ended up staying for 2 more weeks, which thinking back now, I'm sure my parents were thrilled that they had to pay double what they initially signed on for. But by the end, like I was bawling when I had to leave the last day. Like I had made all these friends and these people that were like-minded and shared the same love of dance, and I got to be in a show. I don't know, it was just it was a complete 180. So I relate to that feeling of like, I don't know about this, man. And then you get into it, and I think people that aren't in our field, aren't artists, and aren't pursuing that type of career, it's hard for them to understand that moment when you're so young and knowing this is what I want to do. I think
Mhm.
when we tell people sometimes they're like, "Are you sure that's how it was?" Like, no, I'm positive. I was 14. I knew exactly what I was going to do. Um, so both of you, in my opinion, are incredible dancers, wonderful artists, good people. Um, but you're at a very high level. I mean, you're both highly successful, especially compared to the thousands and thousands of dancers out there your age. But I know that there are things that you both still want to work on, you want to improve on. And so I thought it might be nice to maybe talk about a thing or a couple things, some ideas that you might struggle with or that you feel like are your um I don't know, like the thing that always gets you and you're always working on, but how you cope with that and how you deal with that, or how you're trying to better that part of your dance life. If you wouldn't mind just sharing that.
Yeah,
You want to go
so
first?
what sorry. Yeah, so like a few things come to mind. I feel like consistency is the dancer's dream, being someone that you can always rely on. I think that's where outside factors can kind of like factor in, just things that you struggle with. Personally, I'm a very anxious person. I'm also very impatient in daily life, so that is two great combos. So like the way that I'm very anxious in dancing is I get very nervous and worked up before I'm about to do something. So it ends up hindering the idea of me just letting loose and just dancing, which Creative Generations is helping me do. And I feel like it has definitely helped me talking to a few of the mentors and just like them kind of like helping me be more present and trying to get rid of the negative thoughts and instead of just like what is reality, what are you actually doing? Sure, you may have just face planted on the ground, but instead of in front of the whole studio, but let's think about the beforehand. How was the other parts of the variation? Focus on the good, not the bad. And so that's one thing. Another thing is just overall just not getting into the thoughts of like, am I good enough? Will I ever be good enough? Why can I not do this right now? Will I ever be able to do it? Like, just like also trying to get into your director's heads and trying to just see how they feel no matter what level you're at. You're always just like, I want to be the best and I want them to like me and I want all of this. So it's just like taking a deep breath and realizing a lot of your career is sadly out of your control. The only thing you can control is how you show up and how you continue to show up for yourself.
Yeah, that's great. I agree with
Yeah.
that. What about you, Joseph?
Um, I can relate a lot to Emma having uh a lot of anxieties in the studio and being an anxious person in general. But for me specifically, I think a lot of it is dealing with how I look and how I present myself in dance. I'm not the tallest person. I'm about 5'5.5", 5'5 3/4". Um, and I think in the dance world that's quite rare, especially for a guy.
Hmm.
So growing up, I've been told that it's gonna be harder for me. My teachers would never say that I'm not gonna get a job, but they definitely told me it was gonna be hard. And it's just something it's getting better, but I still struggle with. Uh Especially with partnering. Uh I feel like it's hard to partner someone, especially when they get on point and
Yeah.
they're either the same size as you or taller. It's just hard try to stand my own ground while partnering a whole nother uh human being. But as I've gotten older and as I've been doing creative generations and talking to Derek more, um, I've learned that, I should take advantage of it and just realize that it's a unique thing and it's not a hindrance and it's a good thing that that I'm on the shorter side. Um, and yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of times we can get fixated on one thing or an idea that we have about ourselves, this self narrative that we have. And I definitely had one about myself when I was dancing. And it's funny, I stopped performing 6.5 years ago, and I always thought after teaching and talking a big game about um, getting rid of that self narrative and trying to just be your own dancer, that if I ever went back to dancing, I would be wiser and I would be able to shed all of that. But recently I've taken class more often and it's still there. I still struggle with the same ideas I had when I was 16 in my first Houston Ballet summer program. And I looked around at all the other guys and I was like, I don't belong here. So I think it's something that we all deal with and it's something that is always going to be there. But there might be little mental shifts we can make, like, focusing on the things that we're good at and really honing those in and building that consistency in those things. And then the things that we struggle with, instead of maybe thinking of them as these huge burdens on our careers, if we can think of them as an opportunity to improve every time, making the work part of it that fun and chance to really get better at something, which, as you both know, is the most rewarding part. When there's something you're working on and working on and working on, then it gets better. Especially partnering. I always found, Joseph, like doing Pareto work was always the most rewarding because it's not just you, it's somebody else too.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
anyway, that's my little spiel for the Sunday morning. So you guys both touched on creative generations, and I just wanted to know how you all are liking the program, and how you feel like it has helped you here recently in the last couple months since you've joined on. And you both already kind of talked about it a little bit, but if there's anything else you want to share, just for those listening out there that are thinking about signing up or are curious about the program.
Yeah, so the reason why both Joseph and I are in the program is because of Rhodes. He kind of told us about it. So basically, the program was kind of introduced through him, and we just kind of signed up. And I've kind of talked to Derek about it. Is like our first phone call was like almost an hour long,
Yeah,
and it was during my lunch break, and I'm like, wow, this is a long phone call. He's really wanting to know me. I'm like,
I gotta go.
yeah, I'm like I have rehearsal. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, so I told him, I was like, I'm genuinely kind of surprised that you actually like are wanting to talk to me and kind of like hear me out and hear my struggles and like giving me solutions, because like a lot of people will offer space and kind of like somewhere to vent, but not a lot of people have solutions, especially your peers. So I feel like that's the one thing about this program is these dancers have solutions for you. They've had solutions from their old directors, from other peers, from their experiences. So that's a unique thing. And then he just recently added on a nutritionist, and she's amazing. Listen to that podcast
Oh yeah.
before ours. And so yeah, it's just definitely like really, really good. A few things that they've helped me on is I'm was injured when I first started the program. So that was unfortunate, but they definitely helped me try to keep a positive mindset and not get into this negative spiral of, oh my gosh, my life is over. I'll never dance again, just kind of stuff like that, and just how to work through and how to improve while I'm doing my injury. So just, of course, there are those days where you're just like, nope, still suck, but just continuing to grow through the injury is one of the, sometimes injuries are a blessing and a curse at the same time. So I've also felt that I've been able to kind of just like help other people through injuries because I've been like good in my mindset and just be like, hey, my mentor told me this, and sometimes it helped me, maybe it could help you, kind of thing. So just stuff like that has definitely helped me a lot.
That's awesome. Yeah. Uh, I love hearing that you're finding that you can help other people because you're in a good place. I
Mm.
think that's something that could potentially be so great about this whole creative generations experiment is that we find that there are more mentors out there, not just in our program, but just in the studio every day with dancer to dancer, peer to peer mentorship. So that's beautiful. What about you, Joseph?
Um, so I think I think even for me, starting out as a professional, I think CG is great, especially for those starting their career. I think without it, I would be not completely lost, but a lot less sure of who I am and what I'm doing, uh, both inside and outside the studio. Um, Talking to Derek has been really good. He's helped me ease a lot of concerns and worries about where I am and who I am in the company. And I feel like ever since doing CG, my work in the studio has been a lot better, and I just find myself not worrying so much, especially when I'm dancing. Derek has given me a lot of breathing techniques to help calm anxieties, and he's given me breathing techniques as well while I'm dancing,
Hmm.
especially for things like jumps. And I found that it's helped make the ju jump feel a lot less strained and tense, and also just kind of helps in general sustain those positions longer while I'm jumping. Um, let's see. But yeah, I think yeah, that's a lot of good stuff to say about CG.
Yeah. No, I mean, I care about you guys a lot. And so I fully endorse Creative Generations, but I also am just happy that it's not only working out for you both, but you're finding it's making you feel better and making you better. That makes me really happy. Um, Speaking of Creative Generations, and while we're on a podcast, somebody told me that you both have a podcast and it's going to have something to do with Creative Generations. So I thought we could just talk about it. What's it called? What's it about? When's it going to be out? Where should we be listening to it? Who's got all the details?
Yeah,
Joseph, take it away.
yeah, I can take this one. So basically, it started about a year and a half ago in my first year as an SP2. Um, it was audition season. I was um I was really struggling with what I wanted to do with my future. And just because I was bored and had nothing better to do, amidst all the crazy audition stuff, I decided, hey, it would be a crazy idea if I started this kind of dance interview show, um, talking to fellow pre-professional dancers about their struggles and experiences in the dance world while still being a pre-professional. At the same time, I was also considering quitting at the time. So I think it was a good kind of way for me to just ask and hear out other dancers on why they dance.
Mm.
And so I did that for about 8 episodes. Did not go very well. I'm not too proud of how it went, but yeah. But I know Derek was talking to Emma about some podcast ideas, and Emma knew I had this podcast from about a year ago, and she told Derek, and so Derek talked to me, and he said, "Would you want to bring this podcast up?" And now that I'm in a much better place mentally and physically, I said, "Yeah, sure, why not?" So we are going to be rebranding it. Um, the new title of the show is called Pirouettes and Perspectives, which I think is a much better title. The last title was What the Heck Do I Dance For? Which I just came up with like uh last minute before I uploaded the first episode. Um, but yeah, Emma, do you want to add on to that, or should I keep talking?
I can add on, I can add on.
All right.
Yeah, so the main premise of the idea is to kind of take over Joseph's and just have a co-host. So I'm very like happy to join. I've always wanted to do a podcast. And so I'm happy to do it with Joseph, one of my closest friends. So yeah, the main idea is just to kind of have honest conversations with peers in the dance world just about like common struggles to let everyone know that they're not alone. So I feel like a lot of people feel very lonely in the dance world, being like, I'm the only person that has ever experienced this. But when we all start talking, we realize, wow, we all feel that way, and just so I think that's one of our ideas of the podcast, is just to kind of share our thoughts and other people's thoughts. So we already have a few guests line up. So yeah.
That's exciting. Um, yeah, I think that's awesome. I think, and maybe Joseph, you can speak more to this, but I think, when you're having a hard time and you're struggling with something, when you talk to people, um, either a mentor or a fellow dancer, a peer, a lot of times, at the very least, it just kind of validates your feelings and makes you feel like you're not alone. And like, okay, there are other people out there that feel the same way. You can kind of take a deep breath and you can just keep marching forward. So I think that's really important. I think it's great that you guys are going to do that. And I'm excited to listen to that. I wonder
Yeah.
if anybody on there.
Sorry, what was that last part?
I was just wondering if I'll know anybody on there. You think,
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
maybe.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't know, like
The
Beyonce or JT?
We're working on it. We're working on it.
Got a lot of tour dates lined up. So I thought one fun thing we could do before we sign off is is there any advice that either one of you or both of you have for young dancers out there, whether or not they're a dancer like us that are moving away from home for the first time to pursue their career, or they have just gotten an apprenticeship with a company. If there's any advice, generic or specific, that you would want to give to a young dancer out there? And then a follow up to that, if there's any advice you ever gotten that was like, that didn't work for me, but I still think it's good advice. What do you think?
One advice that I've been given that does not work for me is when people just tell me to breathe,
Oh,
where
yeah.
they're like, Emma, just calm down, breathe, you'll be okay. That is one of the worst advice I've ever been given, just because it's like that it's not that simple. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I wish it was.
It never helps to
Um,
tell someone to calm down. That's not.
yeah. Yeah. So that was definitely like that. But I think on the same lines of that is trying to remind yourself of what reality is. Like if you're to this point of, okay, I just made it into a traineeship, there's a reason why you're there. You didn't just show up and you're like, I'm now a part of this program. There's a reason why they accepted you. There's something there for you. And there's a reason why you show up every day. Don't forget why you love dance, and don't let the negative side of the dance world like hinder your passion and your love for it. So just kind of like being yourself and showing up and reminding there's a reason why you're there, and to just be yourself every single day, because that's all you can really ask for.
That's great. Awesome. What about you, Joseph?
Um, I think the best advice I could probably give someone is, I when I think about when I was a lot younger, I think a lot of the time I remember is just worrying, constantly worrying about what I'm doing or the future. I would say just try not to worry so much. Everything is going to be okay. And just do your best to enjoy the moment that you're in, because it definitely gets harder in the future. So definitely just live in the moment.
And it goes by so fast.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's great advice, you guys. Um, Thank you both so much for waking up at the crack of dawn on a do this podcast. I think everything you both had to say is so helpful, not only for dancers your age, in your positions, but also for people like me that are working with dancers your age in your positions. And I appreciate your honesty, and yeah, I just appreciate you both. So thank you for being here. Um, Everyone needs to check out Pirouettes and Perspectives. It's going to be the new hit podcast out there in the dance world, and I'm excited to listen to that as well. But yeah, thank you all. Have a good rest of your Sunday.
Thank you.
Thank
You as
you.
well.
Thank you for listening to this episode with Emma and Joseph. I can't think of two better people to talk about the importance of dance mentorship and to relay the message that we are all in this together and we can all help each other. Again, if you want to know more about Creative Generations, go to creativegenerations-dance.com. Subscribe to this podcast, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and subscribe to Pirouettes and Perspectives, Joseph and Emma's new podcast presented by Creative Generations.